Hey there, welcome back. It's Mindy Caliguire here, and you are at our SoulCare Conversations with me, Mindy Caliguire, podcast. And we are delighted to use this as a way to share relationships, share stories, share some friends of SoulCare who are a big part of what we do or connections we've made over the years, and allow this to be a place where you can maybe hear something to encourage your own journey or those you support in the care of their soul. And today I'm joined by a very special friend and guest, Shawn Smucker. I wonder what title I would put in front of you. Is it the Right Reverend? Is it the? I would come up with something, but Shawn, I feel like I've known you forever, but it's really only been a few years.
Yeah.
And you have made such an impact in my life and in the work of SoulCare and our team. You are beloved by our families, our community, our team. And so Shawn is an author, a writer, now a bookstore owner, a pretzel making guru. There's so much more to that story. And an incredible husband and dad. And you have a big family. And you've gotten to know my kids. I've gotten to know yours. I've gotten to know Miley. You've gotten to know Jeff. We spent some really beautiful times together. And so thanks for taking a couple hours out of your vacation.
This is great. It's such an honor to be here. It really is.
I just love it. I love it. And so I have a couple thoughts about where our conversation could go. And I'm hoping that as I can pull out parts of maybe your story and then you can ask away and we can have a conversation, that this will be something that would encourage others because you're an entrepreneur, you're a dad, you're a writer, and those are all different things that a lot of people aspire to, and then once they're in it, find it very challenging.
Yeah.
So, and you also coach writers,
yes,
and help people know how to take their idea and put it into words and get it to a publisher and everything that goes with that. So, those are topics that I think a lot of people care about.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's see where we go.
Yeah, let's
Sounds
see where
fun.
we go. Okay, so I think the beginning is always a good place to start. Of how did we meet one another? And I was in a season of the fires had just happened in Boulder. My life was very discombobulated. And I engaged a mutual friend of ours in consulting with me for just a few days, help me see what is going on in my life and where is SoulCare going, what could happen. And he kept pushing me, Jason did, you got to get a book. You got to get another book out. And I kept saying, the world doesn't need one more book, Jason. This is, and I struggle to take and bring structure to things because I have too many ideas. And he's like, oh, I know exactly who you need to talk to. And I was like, really? And
I
he's
remember getting the text. Yeah. Because I hadn't heard from Jason for 2 or 3 years at least, maybe even longer. And out of the blue, I get this text, hey, do you have a minute? I've got someone here I'm talking to who might be interested in writing a book. And I happened to be sitting in my office, and I was like, yeah, sure. And I think we immediately jumped on the phone.
20 minutes after Jason first mentioned your name, we're on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And it was all happening so fast, but thank God it did because he said to me, Mindy, there's one person that does that better than anybody I know. And he's worked with a lot of different people in a lot of kinds of organizations. And man, did that prove true.
Well, that was a fun project.
Yeah, you came out to the land. We had enough of a conversation. You listened to a couple of my videos online and stuff like that to get a sense of what kind of message SoulCare was about. And then I remember, kind of walking you around the property at the ranch. Yeah. And that was a big part of you kind of having the whole thing solidify, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. It was beautiful to see the space because place and physical space just means a lot to me. Even in the novels that I write, the setting is always a character. There's always something going on there. And so it really meant a lot to me to be able to come out and see your space there at the foothills of the Rockies, to sit on that, I don't know if the patio is there yet, but to sit in that flat space and look out over the mountains and talk about what your dreams were and your ideas. I can vouch for the fact that you had many ideas. I think that's the beauty of what you're doing at SoulCare is that you're constantly thinking of new ways of trying to integrate this idea into people's lives because it's such an important idea. And so I think that was the main challenge initially for us was how do we take this huge cloud of information and videos and talks and writings and previous books, and how do we narrow that down into like one strong message that can capture what you really cared about in that moment, especially.
Well, and it was masterful, Shawn. Every time people tell me, I love your book. Somebody last night, two people yesterday, I met, tears in their eyes. Like, I just read your book. It was so meaningful. And every time I do a little loop in my brain of thank you, Shawn. Yeah. I'm glad it was helpful to people. And it makes me very happy to know that these ideas, I believe strongly in these ideas. And often I would be interpersonal with an individual or an organization in presenting the ideas. And I knew they were helpful and I knew they landed. But pressing them into words on a page, Shawn.
Well, that's still the beauty, I think, and the real draw of books is, you only have a certain amount of hours in the day that you can sit down one-on-one and tell somebody your story and really, bring them into your life, into the message that you're trying to promote. Whereas once you have a well-written book, you can hand that to someone and that can cover all the bases. It's not the same as being in person, but it can be a really beautiful experience.
In a way, it's more intimate because when people, after the book was released, we went to your bookshop and did a little thing. And there was somebody, that was one of the first trips I was taking out where people had read the book more broadly. And which it's called Ignite Your Soul. The title. Do you remember the title conversations we had with the publisher? They were so funny. I love where it landed. And what was I saying? So I would be out and about, and people would start like referencing stories that were in the book that they remembered or that were tender to them or whatever. And it was like, oh, it's more than if I had an hour or two to have a conversation with someone because it covered the breadth of a very significant journey on the land here and back in Boston. And so thank you for helping me steward that.
And along those lines, I'm just still such a huge believer and fan of books. And it's, it's not because I have a bookshop. I think I have a bookshop because I believe that.
Yeah.
And there's no reason, if you look at our current culture, it doesn't make sense that books still exist. If you think about how entertaining it is to watch a screen and how engaging movies can be and how there's so many other ways to tell stories now. At first glance, you might think, why do books still exist? But I really think that's why. I think it's because there's still something unique about what a book can do in someone's life when they take those 6-8 hours and just go deep into something with the author. I think it'd be really powerful. And it was such an incredible experience. That whole book was great.
and then as soon as I was understanding the incredible way that you take ideas and then help shape them toward a meaningful written experience, then you got involved in a lot of the things that we were creating at that time at SoulCare, and your involvement was just epic. Everybody, we look fondly back on those days, very fondly. So as we're talking about these ways that we've had the chance to work together, I've also then, because we were in communication quite a bit, been able to see how you were encountering the challenges of your life as a writer, as an entrepreneur, and as a parent, as it related to the well-being of your soul, which would then became sort of a newer category for you in terms of, you've had a deep, enduring faith for many years, but this was a different angle maybe.
Yeah, there was a real crossroads, and I don't know that we've ever necessarily had a chance to talk about this, but this would have been 2014, 2015. We had just purchased the bookshop, so it was 2014 in the fall. We've got 6 kids, all the challenges that go along with young adults, teenagers, preteens. So that's always sort of, thrumming in the background, sometimes the foreground of dealing with all the things that come up in that way. We had purchased the bookshop in May and just opened that. And then that year in August, Miley's dad passed away. And August, September is when we do our fairs every year. So we have about 6 weeks where we run very large concession stands at 2 different fairs in Maryland. And it's 6 weeks of just 5 weeks of nonstop, like 7 in the morning till 10 at night, every day of the week for 5 weeks. And so Miley's dad passed away. She was in Tennessee. The fairs started up. We were moving. I had moved our oldest 2 to college that week. I remember going to bed one night and just feeling that suffocation of, I feel like I might be losing my mind. This is too much. I can't do everything. I just cannot do everything. And that was one of the first times in my life, or at least recently, when I felt very much that I could relate with the stories that you had been telling about, various aspects of your life, various times in your life, when you just hit those points and life is suffocating. You go to bed at night and your brain is just spinning so fast that even though you're exhausted, you're not going to fall asleep for a couple hours. It was such an intense time.
I do remember that. And I want to sort of sit there, what does help you in those nights? Did you find ways to think about your soul or your connection with God in that moment that have been helpful to you?
I think there are a couple different things that I turn to. I mean, a huge part for me is always community. And Lancaster's such a strong community, so family-oriented, very much based around your family. And so I think in some ways that's always a big fallback for me is I have a community that I can go to. And I know not everybody has that.
That's true.
Not very many people have that kind of a strong community anymore. So that played a huge role. It sounds kind of small, but journaling for me has always been huge. And there's something about sitting down and just handwriting out everything that feels like it's too much. And it's not that you walk out of that with less things to be concerned about necessarily, or all the answers have come to
solution.
You. Exactly. But sometimes just writing it out helps you to see, maybe it's the temporary nature of what's happening to you in those moments. For me to be able to sit down and write that and then remember, 3 months from now, it's not going to be like this. 1 month from now, it's going to be very different. I don't know. There's just something I think about because I have a daily, for the most part, journaling habit. That is a place that I turn to a lot in those kinds of times.
Same. From the earliest days of my recovery from that soul crash, journaling has been and the physical handwriting has been important. All right. Thinking of you and words and writing, I think you're one of the only people I know who always wanted to be a writer and then became one. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I love hearing this story.
Well, I loved books when I was a kid. I read nonstop. I would have a book with me at school. I had a book with me in the car. Everywhere I went, I had a book. I would set my alarm to wake up early in the morning so that I could read for an hour before I went to school.
Are any of your kids like that too?
We have had about half, I would say maybe half of our kids are huge readers. They're all readers to some extent. But I see it in some of our kids.
So you were never far from a book.
No, never far from a book.
Intentional time to read.
Always wanted to write. Got to college, and in college really was when I started the journaling. That became a big part of my life, especially in college. But I got kind of pulled into different jobs that would help pay the bills, and still just always had this dream of being a writer, and so I'd write on the side or whatever. And then a relative of mine came to me and said, "Hey, I've got an agent who's approached me. They think I have a story. She was not a writer, and she said, 'Would you help me write this book?'" And it's always, for me, it's an encouraging word to give to other writers that if just be practicing, always be getting better, because I had been journaling daily, writing short stories. Just writing had been a part of my life for probably 12 years before this relative came to me and said that. If I would have waited for the opportunity, I would not have been ready when the opportunity came.
That's a really good word.
So it was that, all that sort of led up to that. It was Ann Byler from Annie Ann's Soft Pretzels, who was my aunt, which you just love.
Are the original that has an Auntie Ann.
Yeah.
I think of you every time I walk through the airports and all the signs. I think I took a couple selfies. I'm like, I'm with your family.
So that was how I got into co-writing and collaborating and ghostwriting and all that.
I love that.
And that was in 2006, 2007.
Wow.
I went full-time in 2009, and it was kind of, that's a long story in and of itself, but I sat down, Miley and I sat down, and we were like, the business thing wasn't working out, and we said, why don't you just let's try having me write for 6 months. I had a couple projects lined up. So the end of 2009, beginning of 2010, I just focused on writing, and
here you are.
16 years later.
And how many books?
Maybe 40, 50. Yeah, probably 40.
That's
40
unbelievable.
50, yeah.
Unbelievable. What's your favorite one of the ones you've written of your own stories?
That I've written?
Yeah. I think I know the answer, but I
So
want to
The Day the Angels Fell was my first novel. And that one was written very much it came out of the co-writing that I was doing, because I was in Turkey working with a missionary, helping him write his life story. He was dying of cancer. It turns out only had 2 or 3 months left to live. And so to be there with him in this just such a foreign environment, it was such a profoundly deep experience. And when I got back from that, I was probably around 40, 35. And I just thought, I've gotten this far in my life and I still haven't written a novel, which I've always wanted to do. I haven't written a novel for my kids, which I always wanted to do. And being with him really gave me the motivation to write that book.
Just get it done.
And so I wrote a book, and it was about death, and it was about, could it be possible that death is a gift? And it was a very deep book for me personally, and it meant a lot. And then I self-published it, and a year later, a publisher approached me and asked if they could take that book. Plus, I ended up writing 5 novels with them.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that sort of hitting a topic like that, that's so sensitive, could be melancholy, could be dark even, I think is part of your voice as a writer, right? Like I've sensed that in you. I think that you bring that sort of gravitas toward hard topics, but you put gentle and beautiful words around them.
Thank you.
And so even just following your Substack and all these other things, I send you all the emails. I'm like, you're making me cry again in the morning. I'm supposed to be together for the day. But they're never tears that I regret having shed.
Yeah.
They're just, your writing pulls and draws, and books, Substack, everywhere I've encountered it. So what a beautiful thing that you decided to make that leap.
Well, thank you. Miley and I went to see Hamnet recently, and the book is such a powerful book. It's about Hamlet and Shakespeare's son, who passed away, which is known. It's not a spoiler. Well, a lot of people didn't know it, but it did happen. And, I'd read the book and then we went to see the movie, and I did not expect myself to be so emotionally impacted by the movie. I could not stop crying. It was one of those moments in life where I just pulled my sweatshirt up over my face and fought to keep it together to cry. It was about to become something completely unmanageable. And coming out of that, Miley and I talked a lot about it. And it is a very sad movie, but I've seen a lot of sad movies. So
what was different?
Yes, and that was kind of the question that I had. And I feel like what the director was able to do, and what Maggie O'Farrell does in the book, is that she's able to take you into this story of grief, and you live it with them. But she somehow plugs into this idea of communal grief as well. At the end of Hamlet, they're all in the Globe, and they're watching the play Hamlet. And when Hamlet dies, there's this moment where you see people in the crowd crying, and you think, there's so much grief in the world. And what do? We never express it. We express it so rarely. And I think what she really invited us into was this moment of permission to express your grief. And that, I think, is at the heart of a lot of what I write, either for myself or other people. It's giving, if it's a collaborative project, it's giving that person the permission to tell their story, to tell it in a way that maybe they've never told it before. I've written books for families, and the kids will come back to me and be like, I had no idea my parent went through this. I had no idea that this was their life, you know? And so that's what I love in stories. That's what I love about the emotion in stories, is that it really does invite us, I think, to express those emotions that we so often are not giving ourselves a permission to express.
They're so common, right? We all have loss. We all have things that we grieve. And yet, as you're describing, I haven't seen the movie or read the book, but as you're describing that final scene, it makes me wonder, how often do we have opportunities for communal grief? And maybe that's a really important thing for us to learn.
And I think this comes back to soul care, right? Like, if we are caring for our souls, I think we're in a space where our hearts are open, where our souls are open to, and that's a painful place to be, or it's a vulnerable place to be, you know? But if we're not caring for our souls, if we're just like robots going through the day, trying to numb our pain with whatever our chosen addiction is, it's just such an unhealthy place to be, an unwhole place to be.
And there's so much more for us that we could have. We don't get to bypass the pain. Like the caring for the soul doesn't prevent grief, doesn't prevent hard things, but it does increase and ground us to have the capacity to hold that space for ourselves and with others. So I really like that idea. So you bought a bookstore. I remember your Instagram posts and how that whole story. Tell us a little bit about that story, because I just think it's one of the funnest.
Miley's also a writer, my wife, and we've worked together for years in just in writing related activities, and she's a beautiful writer as well. And so I was online one day and I saw our local bookshop, Nooks, which I didn't actually follow. Someone else had shared the story of Emma announcing the closure and forwarded it to Miley in a text, just kind of joking, hey, let's, we should buy a bookstore. What do you think? and this had always been a dream of ours, but it was something we would do in our 60s. This was not,
while you've got kids, you have a crazy home.
Life is so full.
Beautiful crazy.
But she got back to me within minutes and was just like, well, we need to talk to Emma. Like, this is something we need to look into, So good. And the timing was good for us in some ways because our youngest had just gone to school the year before. And I think Miley was, she was looking for something else, something else to really plug into and to contribute to. And so we looked into it. We talked to Emma. Eventually, we're able to agree to a deal, and we took over in May of 24. Yeah, and it's been
unbelievable.
Totally.
I loved being, I mean, after watching you guys, I follow you both online, and now the bookstore I follow online on Instagram and things. And it's just charming. It's been fun to see you enter that space and get creative with creating community around the bookstore itself. And then I was able to go there it was about a year ago now, I think, that we were there. And it's been really fun to see this entrepreneurial side of you as a businessman. Like, I remember when we would have conversations about SoulCare, and in my head, a writer has one sort of set of skills, but you also like manage P&Ls. You think about inventory, and you have a lot of, like, even the whole pretzel business thing, that is a massive, massive endeavor every year that you are managing and leading, and your family has been. And but anyway, it's just been fun to watch this journey of the. It seems like a deep joy that comes to you in the midst of this work.
Yes, it is a deep joy. And, I think it's interesting because a lot of people tend to think of bookshops as sort of dying off. We've got the huge online retailers that are cheaper and quicker and have anything that you want. And it's true. And I think what we realized early on, and I think what a lot of small businesses are having to reckon with now, is that it can't simply be about the product and the price, because you can't compete. You cannot compete with these huge retailers who are sometimes selling at a loss in order to pick up customers or pick up information or email addresses or whatever. And we learned that if we were going to have a successful bookshop, it was going to have to be about community. It was going to have to be about creativity and collaboration, and really creating a physical space that was inviting and welcoming and had events and encouraged people to show up physically, in their bodies and interact with other people.
Which
in their bodies,
we need that so much more now than ever.
We do. And I think we're starting to see how important spaces like bookshops are, because online spaces are so vitriolic and so intense and so confrontational because we're disembodied in those spaces. And when you come into a bookshop, we've had events where I can look out into the 30 or 40 people who are there, and I know that this person would totally go after this person on Facebook, or this person would totally disagree with that person, but they end up having a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
We've had two people, go on about their shared love for Tom Sawyer, and Huckleberry Finn, knowing that one is an older MAGA gentleman and the other is like a younger, LGBTQ community member.
Oh, my goodness.
You just don't get that kind of cross-pollination very much anymore. And I think it's really important.
And the therapist friends of mine talk about how when we're in physical spaces together, there's actually a co-regulating that's happening at that neurological level that we lose when we're just doom scrolling or whatever else, and how important that is for our soul, for our psyche. So kudos to you guys for going on such a crazy, wild adventure. I just love it. So I would love to also explore your work with writers. You've talked a little bit about how to stay writing even if you don't have a project on the forefront that's a paid thing or the ultimate desire you have. What's like one of the key bits of wisdom that you offer to somebody who, say, wants to bring a work out into the world in some way?
I'm not much of a person to go to if you're concerned about making money as a writer, or if you're interested in commercial success, because
that's important.
I think it's such a small amount of people who will actually do that of the writers in the world. And so I think it can be really discouraging for a lot of writers when they're not getting to that place, or they don't even see a path for them to get to that place. And so a lot of the encouragement that Miley and I give these days is much more along the lines of that writing actually is a good in and of itself. It makes us better people as we practice it. And that we need to really lean into the things that we love about writing and write the things that we love, not be so concerned about how am I going to sell this? Is this commercial? Is there a path for this in the marketplace? It just doesn't really make sense to me anymore to do that. And I've taken a lot of wisdom actually from Rick Rubin in his book.
I was going to ask if that was part of your inspiration, because you've shared some of his quotes.
Yeah, The Creative Act is such a great book when it comes to that. I mean, he was hugely successful in the music world as a producer, but it wasn't because he was chasing commercial success. He was really leaning into the things that he loved and leaning into what he thought was good. And I think too often we chase what we think other people want us to make, or what the voices in our head are kind of telling us we should make. So we just really try to encourage writers now, write consistently, write what you love, and don't get discouraged by, lack of sort of perceived progress, because if the writing isn't enough, you're not going to last. The writing itself, the act of sitting down and writing, that has to be enough for you. Because for most of us, that's all we're going to get. You might get a published book, very rarely will you see any kind of commercial success. So if that's what you're writing for, that's not going to serve you.
Well, and all the things you're mentioning seem like things that are so seamlessly connected to the ideas of caring for the soul, because when we're living in that space of connection with God, attentive to God, to ourselves, to the world and others around us, we can let go of outcomes.
Yes.
Letting go of outcomes is critical. And I would think for people who are writers, that would be an important rhythm to return to. Also, the practice of journaling, right? And saying, I've got to face a blank page as an invitation, not to perform, but to understand what's really going on inside my head.
Yeah.
And so I can see both of those being. And then the third thing you said about writing for yourself, that my husband Jeff has also written several times. He's a beautiful writer.
Yeah.
And but one of the more books that he has written and has had a lot of, has impacted a lot of people, which is just beautiful. He would get to various points in the process of writing it and get stymied or stuck in some way. And I think it's his story to tell, but he would be more inclined to think, who am I writing this for? How do I make it be successful,
Yeah.
And I would often remind him, Jeff, I think you're writing this to yourself.
Yeah.
This is your message to you.
Yeah.
And if it ends up helping other people, awesome.
Yeah.
But do you see that often, that people are sort of writing the thing for themselves, even to work out a thing?
That was, for me, the day the angels fell, I was wrestling with this idea of death, and how am I supposed to continue to live with this knowledge that death is coming for all of us, And so this question, could it be possible that death is a gift, was really the question that I personally wrestled with, and that story came out of that question. Wow. And I think there are a lot of things that will come out of that if we'll engage in it with sort of a playful mindset, and not caring initially. I'm talking first draft. Now, as you advance a work, you might have to think more about the audience and think more about what kind of voice do I want to have. But I think that first draft, and Rick Rubin talks about it, it's like a journal entry.
Huh.
When you write a journal entry, you're not thinking, what is so-and-so going to think about this?
Nobody's going to read my journal entries.
Exactly. We don't create things, or we shouldn't create things only thinking about what someone else is going to think of it. We really need to engage in this creative act in a way that, serves us, because that's what's so beautiful about creativity, is it is a healthy soul care activity. It is something that, whether it's writing, photography, painting, for some people it's business, for some people it's, there's so many different ways that we express ourselves creatively. And when we do those things, and we do them in a playful way, and we do them in a way that's that isn't outcomes based, it can be such a beautiful part of our lives.
Well, I want to say thank you on behalf of probably many, many other people that if they had the chance to sit down with you would want to say thank you for your work on our team, through our work, but far more broadly into the world. And your amazing family, the people you get to encounter at the fairs. I just feel like you are living such a generative life. There's so many edges of your contribution, your generosity of spirit, your creativity, your wisdom. And I'm just delighted that you would sit down and share some of that with our SoulCare Conversations. Before we drop off, though, I'd love to give you a minute to just let people know how can they find you, how can they learn more about your podcast, about your writing, and then especially I want to make sure we let people know how they can order from an independent bookstore, even if they live way far away from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you can find my books anywhere. Shawn Smucker. I have 5 novels and a memoir. I write at Substack, shawnsmucker.substack.com, usually every week or every other week, something like that.
So good.
And that's a fun thing for me. Like that is just strictly play, writing something that I'm interested in. There's...
Pause on that. Like one of the things about your work on Substack that I've enjoyed is I get a tiny glimpse into the community that follows you. And I mean, follow, but is engaging with you. And oh my gosh, it's like I hear my thoughts being said by
really
other
fun.
people's comments. And it's really pretty fun.
Substack is a fun place.
Yeah.
And then for the bookshop, you can find us online at nooks.gallery is our website. We're on Instagram, Nooks with 5 O's.
Because a few more O's is always a good idea.
Yeah. And then if you want to support us, we do have all of our items that are currently in stock on our website that you can shop. There's a little shop online button. But if there's something that's not there, or sometimes it's just easier to go to bookshop.org, which is a place that you can support local independent bookshops. So you can go to bookshop.org, choose whatever local bookshop you want to support. If you want to choose Nooks, that's awesome. And then that bookshop gets 30% of the sales, which is actually a huge thing. And we don't have to, order those books in. We don't have to package them and send them out. It's just simply sent into our account, and it's a huge help to us. So,
that's great. Great. Well, I think everybody should want to support and help what you guys are doing. I think you'll enjoy Shawn's work directly through his own books, but follow him on Instagram because you guys are a fun follow. I love it. You'll get to see all the fun kids, and I am grateful again for you to stop by, and also just again so grateful for how you have lent your considerable gifts to the work of SoulCare and what we're becoming. So
well, I appreciate our friendship very much.
Fun.
Thanks, Mindy.
So thanks for joining. We'll catch you next time. I'm sure we'll figure out how to do soul, whatever they're called, notes at the bottom, show notes, that's what they're called. We'll figure out how to do that and make sure everything is available to you. But thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.